Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Stitching Tales, about a podcast about sewing and also running a sewing business. I am Johanna Lundström, the author of several sewing books, including Fit for Knits and Sewing Jeans, and I also run a sewing pattern company under the brand name The Last Stitch.
And my name is Malena Hjerpe. I am a freelance pattern maker, and I also make my own PDF patterns under the name Hazelhen Patterns.
And in today's episode, we're going to do a bit of a catch-up, because we like to do that once in a while, because a lot of things actually goes on behind the scenes as well. Sometimes more, sometimes less, but we realized that we do have quite a few updates to talk about today that has been going on, and also trying to catch up from previous episode. And we highly recommend that you go back and listen to our older episode as well, so you can follow the process and the ups and downs of both our businesses and our sewing experience. So Malena, what has been going on lately in your life?
Well, I actually have... I've been working on the PDF pattern for Bilberry Top for, not over a year. I started in maybe March something. The idea behind the Bilberry Top came like 3 years ago, so it has been a long process. But actually, last week, I actually did a few hours of working on the illustrations for the sewing instructions. So that was really nice to actually, just be able to open up the file again and look actually how I have come quite far on it. I have basically all the illustrations done now. So it's not, if I just were able to do focus work, it wouldn't take actually that long for me to finish it up. But yeah, I don't have that time at the moment. So, but I got to open it again. I got to spend a few hours on it. So it was really nice to keep it a little bit fresh in mind. That's so difficult when you when it goes many months since I last worked with it, to what did I actually do? In what stage was this? These measurements that I have for the garment, finished garments, are they correct? Are they not? I want to double check everything, triple check. So I don't remember, did I triple check it, or is it just the first draft? Or and I am so bad at writing down things. I think I will remember everything, but you don't. So yeah, that's a little bit the danger when you don't work constantly on it. You forget what you what you have done, so you redo and you recheck, and so it's a little bit of a hassle. But at least I opened the file again. Yay!
Yeah, I'm so excited to hear this, because such a great pattern, and actually I think I've seen the first iteration of it, because we have been friends and partners for several years now, and I remember when you sent the first illustrations or the prototype of that top, so I'm very, very excited to actually see it in fruition. So do you have a non-commitment imaginary release sequence or date?
Well, I want to say next year. Probably not before the summer next year, because I'm more or less fully booked until June. So yeah, maybe in the fall, maybe. I don't know. It's gonna be 10 years later, and it's oh yeah, now it's released. No, yeah. PDF patterns are not a thing anymore, even.
Yeah. Yeah, there are some pros and cons of taking our time, because we have really long release cycles between patterns. I guess the pro is that you don't rush things. You do have a lot of time to think about things and check and double check and process everything. I guess there is a value in some ways of giving something time, because if you keep churning out stuff, there's always a risk of making smaller or bigger mistakes, or even more so maybe not do you realize things afterwards that you would have done differently. And the way that we work, that we only release pattern every other year in best cases.
At best, yeah.
Yeah, at best. But the pro is that there's a long thought process going into it. So once it actually is out, there has been a lot of consideration going into that pattern. I'm just trying to see the upsides of the fact
no, but it's so true also, because sometimes when you sleep on it, like literally the brain needs to sleep on it sometimes. And it was something with it has like a pleat at the front. And I mean, something with my brain when it's not then it's the pattern pieces are not symmetrical and the pieces go over the center front line. Something like my brain doesn't really work with that. You want it to be symmetrical, then it's so much easier to work with. So it has been something like. Yeah, that overlapping line, it doesn't sit right with me for some reason. And then after, I did the patterns and I made the PDF patterns and everything. And then I realized oh, right, but I graded it on one side of the center front line, the pleat detail, but I didn't do it on the other side. And that just came to me I wasn't working on it. It just struck me damn, I didn't do that. I missed it. So yeah, now I fixed it. But that was so long after the process, which also is a little bit scary. Okay, so what else is there?
Yeah.
What else have I missed?
What else is there? But the good part is that we have so much time to figure out all those things, but before we release a pattern.
Yeah, and it wasn't a huge thing, but obviously, it needed to be corrected. And also, this is why you do have a test group as well that test the patterns, and maybe you figured these things out then. So yeah, but sometimes it's funny how the brain works, because all of a sudden it's just that's something that I missed to do. And also the reason why it's working so slow with this pattern, I am working 100% on freelance work right now. I'm actually working with 2 different companies, so 50-50. And also still it is 100%, which I'm used to working, but just the mental thing when I'm working with 2 different companies is it feels like multitasking, when you switch in between the companies. It just takes so much more mental space for me when you switch from one to the other. So I don't have any rushed my own patterns then. I just need to focus on my daily work, focus on that being well done. So I have no problem that my own stuff is taking time then.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I agree with you. I've also done, the 50-50 thing, having 2 different employers. And also my current situation normally is that I have a day job that is 50%, and then I have my company 50%, and usually occasionally I also add on more work at different departments where my day job is. So I totally agree with you. It's extremely taxing in a way, because especially in the startup phase, because it does add up more than if you would do 100% at one particular job. There is that task switching situation for sure. So I totally get it. And also learning a new employer, new routines, because everything is different. And we should also say that I think
you want to achieve 100%, even though time-wise no, but everyone knows that you're only working 50%. So nobody is expecting you to do 100%, deliver 100% work when you're only working 50%. But it's just that mental, you want to deliver it. You want to deliver 100% always, regardless of how many hours you are actually doing. And one of the companies, at H&M, I've been working with them for many, many, many years. So there is just I know exactly what I'm doing. It's no problems. I know the programs. I know everything, how the folders are, all the systems. That's no problem. But the other company is Fjällräven, and that one is new to me. I never worked with them before, and so it's been so nice to really exciting to work with them. And I know a couple of the pattern makers that are working there, so it's been such a nice team, really great. So it's been really fun to work with them and try out a new working with a new company. But as you said, figuring out how are all the folders in all the computers, and I mean, we use the same programs, pattern making programs, so that's not a problem. But everyone is like creating patterns depending a little bit on what type of garments you are making, like in a little bit different like setup structure, and also some programs where you like make the size chart and those kind of things. So those has been new to me. And I don't know if it's my age or something, but to learn.
You're so young, Malena. You're so young.
Now it's going a lot better. I've been working with them for a couple of weeks now, so now it's like, okay, I think I got it now. Now I'm now I'm on track again.
Yeah, and it's so nice. We should say that first of all, if you're a new listener, your day job is being a freelance pattern maker. So you work for big companies, and also I don't remember the episode name top of mind, but there's an older episode. You go back and you want to listen to Malena give the inside scoop on what it's like working as a pattern maker for big brands, which I think is it's one of our most listened episode actually. So it's interesting. Fun. I think there's a lot of interest in that particular, and also for our non-Swedish listeners, if Fjällräven sounds familiar, we are saying it now how it's pronounced in Sweden, but maybe other people say Fjällräven or something like that. I don't know.
I know. I don't know how to pronounce it in English.
But it's called Fjällräven, if you want to say it correctly. It's the company behind the extremely famous hipster, I guess, backpack Konken, right? And also down jackets and a lot of other it became like a popular streetwear brand. It's so funny because Fjällräven is a really old company that, for instance, when I was a kid, we all had Konken backpacks at school, but it wasn't like a trendy thing. It was just that everyone had them, and then all of a sudden it became like a super trendy thing with lots of different sizes and colors and everything like that. And Fjällräven makes all kind of like outdoor equipment, basically, right?
They are really like a high quality, high standard outdoor brand.
Yeah, and it's all designed here in Sweden. I think, is it based in Östersund for a while, or is it in Stockholm now? Or
I mean the head office is in Stockholm, but I think they have some I don't know, maybe sales office or something in other cities as well.
So that's really exciting because it's so interesting to see, So we're like you're definitely working with some really very famous international but Swedish brands. It's so cool because we talk about that sometimes. It's we have to say that we are a very small country. We only have about 10 million people living here. It's a small country up north in Europe, but despite that, we somehow managed to create a lot of like famous brand names. I mean, IKEA is another one, of course. Spotify, to name a few. ABBA, right? That's a brand. It's basically a brand in itself at this point, right? With all the movies and the musicals and everything like that, and Volvo, of course, the cars. Probably.
And also like I mean, for being, I'm originally from Finland, and just comparing the textile industry in Sweden and Finland is like completely different. I mean, in Finland, sure, we have Marimekko and a few other Finnish clothing brands, but it's like you can't compare it to Sweden. I mean, there are so many fashion brands and I mean different companies that work with clothes in Sweden. I mean, really a lot compared to like again how small the country is.
Yeah, it's very interesting. It's hard to say, and I guess success breeds success in a way. I guess that's easier in some way that if there's a lot of like success in different areas, it's probably easier, and there's more talent that can be like brought up in one industry, and then they can bring on to other things like that. And also in terms of fashion, I think if you're more into like high fashion, Acne is one big brand that is from Sweden, and another one that is really getting big now is Totem for quite luxury, I would say, like subtle designs and things like that. And we have jeans like Nude jeans. I think were quite successful outside Sweden as well, and probably a lot of other brands that I'm not even familiar with. And also there's a really big high-end jeans brand called Frame Jeans, which is also by Swedish founders. They're not based in Sweden anymore, but again, it's pretty fascinating, and we can't make like a big analysis, but I guess it's basically, it's a good like breeding ground for that kind of.
And I think Sweden has a lot of history also in actually manufacturing clothes themselves as well. In Borås, a small city outside of Gothenburg where you live, it's really like, we call it the Swedish Manchester because it's like so many. They have actually had like sewn garment properly industry in up until the 70s, I guess. Then everything are made overseas, unfortunately, so we kind of lost that craftsmanship. But they still have really great fashion schools in Borås and also in Stockholm and Gothenburg, of course. So Sweden has a lot of industry when it comes to fashion.
Yeah, definitely, and design in general, I guess, because there's a lot of like, furniture. It's a thing in Sweden. Design is a thing in Sweden, I think. I think also, I would say that the general population awareness around design and designer names is also quite high, I think. There's a lot of familiarity around, design objects and designers, and both when it comes to fashion and interiors and things like that. So yeah, it's interesting. It's nice, but that also makes it. I think it's a nice country to live in, because we are actually surrounded by a quite inspirational environment, even though of course. We are quite small. It's still quite like it's a lot of things going on here in Sweden. So it's a good country to live in. I guess that's one of the reasons why you moved from Finland, right, to Sweden, to get more work possibilities.
For me it wasn't like. I'm a Swedish-speaking Finn, so my Finnish is absolutely horrible. It's I speak Swedish. It's my first language. So when I was done in school, I had a boyfriend in Sweden who is now my husband. So that went really well. And I had a job offering from H&M, and it was like, should I stay in Finland where I don't know the language? And now if you have to work, then you obviously need to speak Finnish, because you have to move also to maybe Helsinki or something, which I had been more times in Stockholm compared to Helsinki. So I was like, Stockholm is much more familiar to me compared to Helsinki. So I'm like, should I move to Sweden or should I move to Finland, back to Finland? Because I was actually living temporarily in Sweden then. The pros and cons list, it was like, yeah, I don't need to write it even. I'm moving to Sweden. It's
okay.
no questions. Like, yeah. I got a job, boyfriend there. Why not?
Yeah, it does make a lot of sense, for sure.
Yeah, and I know the language a lot better compared to my own home country. So, yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of more people speak your language in Sweden than they do in Finland as well. You're language minority in Finland, and here this is the most spoken language. So I guess that also helps a lot, to actually be in a country where, this is our first language, the same as yours.
Absolutely. And I remember like the first couple of years when you had to make these... whenever in Finland, when you had to make a phone call, something like to a more like not just casually talk on like in the restaurant or something, like when you actually had to use specific words or something. I just remember how you have to look up the different words to be able to say them, and then it's like, oh, I have no idea what the person is gonna say back to me. Am I gonna understand it? Am I gonna make a fool out of myself? So the first couple of years in Sweden, then I was just like, I can call whoever, and I know that they will understand me. The dialects are a little bit different, so there are still a little bit of issues in the beginning. But I understand everyone, and it's just so nice. The frustration of not being able to speak the main language is just not a good feeling.
I can totally imagine. I've never lived abroad, but it's so comfortable to rest on your first language. It just adds more security in every way, and so you understand that when you move into another country and the language is a barrier. It's very like limiting in so many ways. And language is it's also power and access. I mean, if you know the language, you have so much easier to actually be able to achieve things. I mean, in all forms, getting work or dealing with authorities and everything like that. So I totally get it.
No, it was a huge change. But your job, there has been a big pivot now. You are working full time with your own company.
Yes, I am.
How has it been?
For the moment, I should say. This is probably not a permanent solution, but I do. I am leave of absence of leave. I don't know the term. In Sweden, we have a possibility of getting. We can keep our employment, but we are able to take a break for up to 6 months to work on our own businesses, which is a wonderful opportunity. I mean, otherwise you would end up in the risk of losing your day job just to give this a shot. And so I have starting in October, I'm on 6 months leave, and it's been awesome, honestly. I mean, I've done this before. I should say I've done this before, and if you have followed me, and it's been a journey. It's hard to make a business work to pay a full-time salary. Still working on it, but it's been absolutely amazing. And I think this time I really I've learned a lot of things from my previous like 100% self-employment phases. So this time I in a much better situation socially. I have my own studio. I am renting it in a space where I have at least 2 other people that are here on a weekday. So we have lunch together. They're also working in creative fields. I also share my studio with a friend who is not here today, but he's also a photographer, and he took photos for our book Fit for Knits, and also has done like the photos for my latest pattern release and everything. So it's been like I'm in such a good environment now that is I'm not feeling isolated. I still have colleagues, but I don't have the what you are describing, because my situation before I went on leave was that I had 2 different day jobs at my day job, working in different departments, plus I was also doing the last stitch. So I was definitely again stretching myself too thin. And I realized that I had the financial means to actually pay myself a salary for several months now in order to get moving on like the bigger projects that I want to finish. It's been really, really good. So the first thing that happened was, of course, that I released my new pattern, because that was only 2.5 years ago since I last released the pattern, the Vide knit pants. And that was really, I have to say, I was very, very positively surprised by the reception and the sales. So it's actually been so far my best performing pattern for like the first months of the sales cycle. Nice. So I was kind of, because my expectations for anything is extremely low. And if you want to know the numbers and everything and the financials of selling sewing patterns, you can definitely go back and listen to our episode. I think it was 34 about this particular thing, and you get the numbers. You understand that this is not like a big money making venture for none of us and a lot of other people as well. But that gave me a lot of. That was just nice to get that kind of encouragement that I can still do things that resonate. So that was such a good start of this 6-month work period, and also the struggle, of course, when you're doing this yourself and you don't have your boss or any other people like depending on you, is to get like a good structure of work, because there's a risk that always a lot of things fall between the cracks because you don't have the structure. So
I can imagine. If you are having a boss, and then you're also like, things needs to be done during the week. You are familiar how to do that kind of work. But then when you're like, okay, now I'm my own boss. I need to set the schedule myself. I need to prioritize everything myself. Like, I can imagine that can be a little bit like, where to start. But do you have like a structure now in the weeks, or how are you doing?
Yeah, I've actually finally. So the first month was a little bit, all over the place. But that was also I was releasing a pattern, and there goes a lot of marketing into that. So, but this is my second week on a schedule, and as you say, because you don't have other people dependent on your output. I mean, for instance, to give an example, nobody's going to be disappointed if I don't post on Instagram, right? I mean, nobody is like waiting for a post from me, but I have to be consistent with social media, with my email list, to send out emails and newsletters and all that kind of stuff. And that's the things that always falls between the cracks for me. So now I have a pretty good schedule. So on Monday I work on I'm going to have a weekly newsletter now, which I've sent out this week, with tips on how to succeed with the sewing machine blind hem. And I also made an Instagram post on this like carousel post. So I'm repurposing content between the email and the Instagram post, and I also have all these contents based on all tutorials on my blog. It's just simplified for the medium. So now I have a good system. So every week I plan to send out a newsletter with some easy digestible tips. So next week, the week that you are listening to this episode, I will do the same thing about how to be successful about top stitching on denim and things like that. And then on Tuesdays is my admin day, which is like bookkeeping and replying to emails and messages, which I'm so behind with. And other things to do. If that's done, I can do other fun things, because surprise, bookkeeping is not my favorite.
No, I mean all the administration stuff. When you say it, it's like, yeah, but how long does that actually take? But then, especially you as well, who has physical books and sells at different places. Like, yeah, I can only imagine that it's a lot to keep track of.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. And then on Wednesday, which is today, we're recording the podcast. So everything that goes into releasing a podcast episode, that's what I do today. And then on Thursday and Friday is my big project days. And I have two big projects to work with now. So the first one that I need to get under the way is to editing my jeans sewing course, which I filmed this summer. And I'm happy to say now that I worked it on Thursday and Friday and also on Saturday. So I have 6 hours of footage that needs to be cut down to maybe a 4-hour sewing course with graphics and everything like that. So I'm going to probably need to work with this for the rest of the year on Thursdays and Fridays. And also I work on weekends too. And then after that, I will switch that to our next book, which we have talked about to a T, the working title. And then I'm just going to move that like resources and that time into that project as well. So I feel like now I have a good foot to stand on. And so far, but this is only a week in, this is my second week on this system. It's been going really well, but I'm going to keep you updated. I will probably be in a month and say, oh, it's all over the place again. But yeah, it just helps a lot to get that kind of structure and reoccurring tasks. So I set that up to remind me of all the things that I need to do for different, purposes. So yeah, and also I've done some sewing as well. So if you have listened to our previous episode here when we talked about trousers and pants, and that really inspired me to make a pair of jeans inspired by a designer brand called Pateau. And just if you're watching the video version, I'm actually wearing a vintage scarf by Jean Pateau, which is the only thing I could afford to buy, because the jeans, they cost over €400, which is a lot of money. It's roughly $400 as well. So you can do the math. These jeans are not cheap. But anyways, so I'm holding them up now if you're watching the video version, and also if you go to our Instagram account, you can see more photos, and I'm also going to post it on Last Stitch as well. So this is like a wide leg, and I did this in dark denim with lots of nice details, top stitches slanted pockets instead of curved pockets. And in the back, I didn't use back pockets, but I top stitched the darts, and that's such a nice feature, and it just adds some interest, so it's not just plain in the back. So that's a really good. It was so fun to do like a dress pants, but in denim. And also I use inside, we're gonna see, it's like contrasting like polka dot cotton quilt fabric for the pocket lining. And I bought a button at a second-hand shop, a gold button here, matching. And it's also so fun because I got so inspired when we talked about sewing trousers. So when I was at the second-hand shop, I also managed to find a really nice dress, a tweed. Is it called? Like, no, what's the? Probably it's like a square wool polyester mix fabric that it's gonna turn into like a really nice like male style dress trousers with that nice Hong Kong finishing that we talked about inside of the waistband and everything like that. I'm gonna do a lot of those trips that we talked about, so I'm really, really excited about that actually. So it's a good thing to do the podcast as well, because we talk so much about stuff, I get more inspired. Because as we have mentioned, both of you and I, Malena, the most sewing we do is for our businesses. It's samples for developing our patterns, and I do a lot of sewing for my tutorials as well. So, but Malena is actually wearing one of your tops right now, aren't you? Yeah.
Yeah.
So Malena's wearing a very beautiful knit top in like grayish green, blue with white stripe.
Yeah.
So that's really, so what is that a sample for something that we are?
Yeah, it's for our upcoming book. It's a long sleeve t-shirt. So the regular fitted garment. So sorry. So yeah, it's nice to be able to wear it, do wearing tests, and yeah. I mean, of course, I had to dress up for the podcast.
Yeah, you look fabulous, and we should also post on our Instagram account a picture of this beautiful top that Malena is wearing. And of course, if you watch this on YouTube on Stitching Tales Pod as well, you can actually see Malena live.
It's so good for your
that.
posture as well, because I'm really like trying to have my shoulders so these drag lines don't show because I mean I have quite bad posture, so shoulders forward, then those drag lines will appear. So I'm really like trying to have my shoulders back, so it looks nice. I mean, shoulders as you are supposed to, but yeah. When you work with your computer, you get.
You're right. Shoulders before and after, decades of computer work. I'm the same way. Yeah, it's.
Yeah.
But if you do have problems with that, you can also consult our book Fit for Knits, where we show how to adjust.
We should have computer working shoulders chapters.
Yeah, exactly, how to adjust that, the kind of forward sloping shoulders, to fix that. And I should also say it was fun because I got the wool poly fabric from a second-hand store. And you may wonder, how do I know that it's a wool poly mix? Well, I did the burn test, and I know if you're in the older generation, I'm sure you're familiar with it, because it was more difficult to get like exact the fiber content in fabrics, so you have to do like a burn test. So I just thought it would be interesting just to give you, if you're not familiar with this, you can find it online everywhere, I guess, this kind of information. But I am holding up now for our viewers an old sewing books, which is beautiful Swedish sewing books. It's called Ritas Sylexikon, which is like sewing lexicon, ABC in sewing. And there's a nice guide here for how different fibers act when you put fire on them. Different fibers when you put fire on
when you burn.
You set fire on fibers. What is happening?
You're really sick or tired of your project.
Yeah.
What happened to it?
Exactly. That just you set fire on everything. Sometimes I guess it would be nice to do that, and so we're going to try to. I'm going to give you a couple of. I thought it was fun for listeners if you're not familiar with this. So, for instance, the how I knew that it was a mix of wool and polyester is that, first of all, when I set fire on the threads, it smelled like burnt hair, and that means that there's a wool content, because wool smells pretty much like when you set your own hair on fire, which has happened, like, at least for those of us that has a little bit longer hair, I'm sure. It just happened to me not too long ago that I got an accidental bang. I don't have bangs normally, but yeah, thanks to fire, I ended up now I have bangs, but also it didn't just smell like burnt hair. When I also set it on fire, it kind of like got into like hard pieces, so it's like when you melt plastic, you know what happens. It gets really like hard pieces, so you can't crumble them. They're like really, really stiff. And so both these things happen. So that's how I realized that it was a mix between wool and polyester. So those are really good things to know, that you can, of course I can't say if it's 50% wool or 10% wool, I have no idea, but you know, it's a reasonable guess. And so I thought that was really good to know. For instance, if you're setting fire on cotton and linen, there will be like a very clear flame, but there will be no ashes, and the smell is burnt paper. So I think this is kind of like a good, like old way of doing that. We should still, you know, if you're like me and in the secondhand bin find some nice fabric and you wonder what kind of fabric is there, you can actually figure it out pretty much. The only problem is you probably have to buy it first. I don't recommend setting fire on fabrics in the store to figure it out.
Yeah, I think that's
probably
upon.
Pushing it too far.
Yeah, but I think these are really good ways also. I mean, we always say, and I mean, sewing is an expensive hobby, yes, but it also, it depends on what you compare it to. I mean, you bought this fabric secondhand, so then I guess it wasn't that cheap or that expensive.
Yeah, I paid €5 for it, roughly about $5. Yeah,
I mean that's good for
a little bit
mix.
more than a meter. Yeah, it's not that too far, but it's a little over 1 meter, a little over 1 yard.
Yeah, and if you compare your jeans, I don't know if you know exactly how much your own jeans now costed when you sewed it, but compared to, I mean, you shouldn't compare the prices to H&M because that really gives like weird price comparisons, but to the French brand name, I don't remember.
Patou, Jean Patou, but it's now also only called Patou.
Yeah, I mean, if that's €400, I mean, I guess your trousers were not even close to that price tag.
No. I don't even. I think I bought some really nice denim, but also because I'm short, I don't need a lot of denim. But I would say probably all in all with zippers, and you know, I used old fabric scraps for the pockets, and I got my button at you know, the secondhand store. I think maybe all in all, maybe €40, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So compared to 400.
With thread and everything, and I use good quality thread and stuff like that as well. I should factor in that. Yeah. So
then it is, I mean, you got some really nice trousers, so then it's quite cheap, actually, to be honest.
It is, and that's one of the recommendations. If you're able to find like dead stock designer fabrics, and there are also a lot of both online vendors that do that, and some in larger cities you can usually find fabric shops that do that as well. That's where the big saves are, because if you can get like fabric for Gucci or Prada at a fraction of the price, and I mean these kind of garments can cost like literally €1,000, no problem. So and you can probably sew that for like 1/10 of the cost and even less. For instance, my oldest daughter, when she graduated high school, I made a dress for her in a nice Chanel fabric, a white, like ivory white.
Fancy.
So it's absolute, and you know, it's a good quality. So she used it also for graduation when she graduated from university as well. So yeah, it's such a good investment, and I try to find those good quality fabrics. I mean, because you have to think of durability as a way of sustainability as well. If you're able to get really good quality fabrics, then your garment will hold up, hopefully, for a lot more years than if you save on that stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, when you sew something and not good quality and it starts pulling just after a few washes, or when the seams are twisting or something, like the fabric is not so nice. I mean, it's just so sad when you have spent so much time working on that garment. So yeah, good quality fabric is it's a real nice thing to do. And obviously then the reason why we are pushing on making samples before is that if you have that expensive fabric, you don't want to waste it, so do samples before then, so you make sure that the fit is nice and the design is what you actually want.
Yeah, and usually you can get, otherwise sometimes you have like scraps from other projects and you don't have to sew like a full garment, just focusing on key parts. For instance, if you have a top, you might, you don't have to like do all the process. You can shorten it, for instance, and just see if it fits over the chest area and do measurements. And also, of course, again, it's a really good idea to use fabric that you can find as, in either a bargain bin or something like that, like remains. I think it's called stuvbitar, we say in Swedish, where usually there's like pieces left from that you can't sell for one reason or another at a regular price and a regular roll, and you can find that and you can use that for the sample. So there's a lot of options as well to do that, and if you figure out the good fit, then you can reuse that pattern over and over again. So yeah, it might feel wasteful to do a sample first, but again, that pattern will keep on giving for many, many years to come if you stick to those basic stuff and then you just do adaptations. So for instance, on the jeans pattern that I used, I based it on Ottobre magazine pattern, and I will actually reuse that for the other pant project that I'm going to do of this secondhand twill fabric. So just going to do a few adjustments, but I can repurpose it because I'm very happy now with the fit and with everything sits. So yeah.
Oh, that sounds good. Looking forward to seeing pictures of it because it's a really nice fabric.
Yeah. Hopefully, and otherwise, if it ends up being a mess, we're definitely going to keep you updated as well. But I feel confident. It's so nice to get your sewing mojo back. It's definitely, I love that, because I've actually been going to the studio in the evenings after dinner to work on the jeans, and I've been so enjoying it. It was such a fun. I've fallen in love with sewing again. Hopefully it will stay for a while.
Oh, but that sounds so nice. And are you working content creating? Are you sewing these? Are you going to sew these trousers then on Mondays, or how are you going to structure it?
That will probably on the weekends and evenings, and then I don't have a sewing day. I thought about it because it's nice to add more content, and I'm definitely going to do some more tutorials on my blog, and I've also posted a lot on Instagram on behind the scenes of sewing the jeans, and so it's a nice way to also be able to provide content and give tips for the people that are following me, but I don't have the time right now to do it on like a day basis, but yeah, I'm a single woman, empty nester. I have time.
No, but that's a good thing when you love what you do. So I mean, sewing for, even though it is for your company, I mean it's still a pleasure. And also just the thing that you can decide yourself that you are going to do it in the evening or the weekend. Then it's like a totally different thing compared to if the boss orders you to work on a Saturday. Then it's a total different. It's a difference there. Yeah, and you have to find that's really, really, really good. And I think also to finish off this, like my thoughts around, working for myself, I think it's good to have that mix, so you don't because I do have a lot more freedom now, and I think it's very important to have structure, but I also need to find joy and spontaneity and creativity in this in order to really maximize this experience. So because when this 6 months are over, I'm going to go back to my day job and with a lot more limitations and commute, and it's going to eat up a lot of time. So I feel like, really taking advantage of this time to also enjoy myself and not just push myself, which I've done before, to feel like I need to get reach this number and release all these products. And I'm going to try to be a bit more playful this time and try to enjoy it more as well. Yeah, but that sounds a healthy choice. But how are you, speaking of numbers, your YouTube channel, you had a wish goal to reach 100,000 followers. How is it going?
And this is kind of funny because as you made the math when I spoke about it, and I didn't mention YouTube, and the reason why is YouTube, I usually do that on weekends, and I can't work 7 days a week anymore. I'm just not that person anymore, and I also have a pretty active social life. But the thing is that, so I had this idea that I'm going to do a real big push on YouTube, and I will do that eventually, but it won't happen this year. But you know what? I am only 600 subscribers from reaching 100,000 viewers, and I don't have to do. And this is the if we're going to give you any listeners thinking about content creation, why it's powerful, the thing is that I have over 200 sewing videos on YouTube, and they keep on giving, even though many are several years old, because it's easy to find them. It's like a library of content that keeps on giving. It finds new people find my content helpful. They are searching for stuff. They want to know how to install a zipper on jeans. I show them that, etc., etc. And so honestly, I think that I will be able to reach this by New Year without having to publish any video this fall.
Oh, that would be nice. Yeah, but that's the big difference.
That's passive work.
Yeah, I mean, but the difference between Instagram, where the post might live a day or two and then nobody's gonna find it, but YouTube, I mean, that's more of a search engine. People go there also to search for information, and then, as you said, a several year old post video might come up. So yeah, it's a little bit a different strategy, I guess, with YouTube as well. But 600 followers, that fingers crossed. Then that's not a lot.
Yeah, that's not a lot, because I average around 400 or 500 new subscribers every month. And why people, is this a vanity metrics, 100,000? Yes, it is, but it's also that you get a real physical silver placket play button from YouTube. You have to apply for it, of course. I don't think they send it automatically. And you can bet I will apply for that one, and I'm going to hold it up in one of those podcast episodes, because it's been nine years of consistently and sometimes semi-consistently, sometimes less, of producing sewing videos. So being able to reach this milestone after 9 years of grinding this stuff, it's gonna feel amazing. I mean, it's short-lived feeling, but I will definitely milk it.
No, but you have to celebrate all the wins when you have your own business. You have to celebrate them. And also, it's like such a smart way also to do from YouTube side, to have this gamification that you get these achievements. And I've seen it on Instagram as well, that you get every now and then you get achievements for something, that you posted 10 reels, or you have this and this amount of followers now. Like, it does something mentally to you, like you want to go to that next level.
Yeah,
this is a smart way for them as well to you want to reach that goal.
Yeah, because exactly, and it's an incentive to keep producing content, regardless if it's reels or videos or shorts or whatever. It's very, very true, and it works. It works clearly, at least on me. I'm sorry. But anyways, Malena, we talked a little bit before we started recording this episode, that you also have something cooking, maybe, that will be, we can be very vague about it, but you do have something else also in the making. Could you just say a little bit about this, even though it's kind of secret?
I think I've spoken about it in the spring, that I have though I was working on a secret project that I couldn't reveal anything. So soon, I think it is after in the beginning of next year, I will be able to talk about it. So that's also really fun. And isn't it like funny how when you get a deadline, when you get a specific task, a deadline for my own self, then I make it happen. I mean, when we talked about the book as well, I mean, I had a deadline because my pattern program license were expiring. So it's like, okay, I will make 4 patterns, no problems, right away. And I did that. But for my own PDF patterns, when I don't have any deadlines or anything, many years later, and still not done.
Yeah,
but it's amazing what you actually can do when you put your mind to it and have a deadline, and then you get it done.
Yeah.
But you can't do that with everything, obviously. I mean, then you burn out. So it's, I mean, I have decided for myself that no, it can take its time. But just a contrast. It really depends on what kind of person you are. Do you want to have the deadlines? Do you want to? Because then things start to happen.
Yeah, and I think everyone kind of like excels at deadlines in some form. And I would probably say, I don't know if it's Murphy's Law or something, there's probably another name, but you know, that the task kind of adjusts to the time allotted. So for instance, if you have 20 days to finish a task, it's going to take 20 days. But if you have just 5 days of finishing the task, you will still be able to finish task. I mean, roughly speaking.
Yeah.
And
Murphy's law is when like something can go. If something can go wrong, it will go wrong. I am a strong believer in Murphy's law, so I'm like try to avoid all things that can go wrong.
Yeah.
But I totally understand what you mean, that you adapt. I mean, time, money, space in your house, apartment. You adapt to whatever resources you got, and you make it the best of it.
Yeah, and Parkinson's law. It's Parkinson's law.
Okay.
Parkinson's law, right? Sorry if I confuse you, but good, you got it, Malena. So Murphy's law is if can go wrong, it will be, and if
I'm
time
just thinking
expands
Murphy's
to
law
fill
about
the
all
work.
the notches that can go wrong will go wrong.
Yeah, that's a lot of. We go through a lot of Murphy law feelings, especially when we're releasing a product, especially a sewing pattern, which we talked about in that episode. There's so much like tiny things that can end up in the wrong spot if you're not like fully focused and don't double check everything. But yeah, time expands to fill the work. Parkinson's law, yeah, definitely. So I think its deadlines are very helpful, and that's why I also try to set my own deadlines. For instance, for the jeans course, it's going to be done by the new year. That there is no, and that might mean that I have to do like some all-nighters at the end, but I'm fine with that, because it's kind of gratifying sometimes to push yourself a little bit, because then afterwards you usually feel really good about yourself. You have to find a good balance there,
Yeah. And also because we both have a little bit uncertain, like the perfectionism trap, that everything needs to be 100% perfect. But you don't want to release anything until it is, you have like now 100% sure that it is 100% correct. Well, then you will never release anything.
Exactly.
I mean, you just get stuck in that trap, like it can be better. But at the end, it's like, but now you're just changing things from being great to being also great. Like, it's no improvement. Like, the customer is not going to see the difference. It's just for yourself that as long as I keep on changing things, it will, you have to put a stop to it. Sometimes, like, now it is as good as it gets. Now I can release it.
Yeah, it's very, very true. It's easy to get stuck in the details, especially, I should probably change the lines or the design on this, like, instructions. And also, one trap that I fall into when it comes to sewing instructions is that I tend to like, but you can also do it like this. So I end up doing, like, showing 2 different methods in the same sewing instructions. And then I realize, am I doing people a service, or am I just confusing people because I show them 2 different methods so they don't know which one should you do? So this is a good example. Like, sometimes simplifying things is actually more helpful for the end consumer as well, and they will also not care if you place the logo on this and that and everything. You have this like ideas of you want, and then you see someone else's brand doing something like, wow, I should have done that instead, or maybe I should do a video tutorial when I release this pattern because this and so person did that, or whatever. And then you, as you say, you raise the hindrance, the bar just keeps getting raised, and there's you can't ever jump over it, basically. So it's a very good trap. It's an easy trap to follow too, and that's also with the jeans course as well. Because jeans, there are so many different ways of doing things, and when I began the project, I wanted to show every single way you can do a front pockets and belt loops and this and that. But now I've actually decided that the course will help you to sew a pair of very professional-looking jeans from start to finish. And if I started to do all the other things, like, it would probably just be overwhelming. And now you will do all these steps, you get a nice pair of jeans, and then I can update the course and do add-ons or things like that eventually, just like you can update a pattern, for instance, if you feel like you want to change something later on or update. So that's also good, like the minimal viable product principle, that you can actually put something out and then iterate and do better as you go along, when you get feedback and realize things. I mean, you're still a solid product. It's basically just, adding that extra thing that, keeps you from actually releasing it.
Yeah. And it's a tricky thing here, like, because there is not one way that is the only correct way. Like, no, but you can do it differently, and it depends on many different circumstances, and you want to explain all the different circumstances, and like, but no, you have to limit yourself also, as you said, for it being clear. That's also when I don't have that many different looks on each patterns, like view A, view B, view C, because for me it's like, but it gets so messy in the sewing instructions, like skip over these steps if you have this view and skip over that step. Like, for me, I want it to be really simple, really clear, very easy to read. Of course, you get a lot of value if you have many different views on a pattern, but I mean, you can do it either way. But I really recognize that you want to show every single way just to be safe, and it's like, you can do it differently. This is just one way now. But yeah,
and if your fabric is a little bit more like this, you can do that and whatever. It just keeps on going. And I think, I mean, we both do very solid sewing instructions, so I feel very confident in guiding people through it. And my solution for that is also that I always do sew-alongs on my website, delostit and .com, where I show sometimes alternative methods for certain steps that I excluded. So that's been my way of doing it, and I can also go more in depth, have different fabric choices. Because that's also another thing I find in sewing patterns, because obviously you can give fabric recommendations, but within that type of fabric type, there's also variants, right? Yeah. So it's hard to explain every case scenario, that you need to deal with. For instance, if you're sewing stripes, for instance, like a striped t-shirt, should you also include cutting instructions and sewing instructions for stripes and how to match that? Then you have several more pages, for instance. Extremely valuable information, but that's the kind of thought process that I can end up because I want to serve. But now I do have a great tutorial on my blog about how to cut and sew stripes, so I feel like I got the cover that way instead. But again, it's very easy to start spinning, especially like you and I do it, where we keep working so long for every project, right? We keep also thinking that we want to add
yeah, absolutely. And I wonder, I saw some for this jeans course now, I saw some trick from the I follow several Instagram accounts like Real Production when they are making real garments that are sold in the store. They don't, or in this particular video, they didn't iron or press, I think it was the center back seam when it goes to the waistband. They didn't press it with an iron. They actually took a hammer and hammered it flat, because it's so thick. The fabric is so thick. So, are you going to include that in your sewing instructions?
Yeah, I do have, in my book actually, I actually do this. I talk about this. I show it as well. I thought it was
so funny. Okay, should we include a hammer now in our sewing kit?
Yeah. It is included in my book, in my sewing jeans book. I actually talk about this. I covered it. But to be honest, I haven't talked about it in the video. But again, it's maybe bonus material. Who knows? Household items you can use to get it right. And I should probably use it if you listen to the previous episode where I had to re-change the waistband because the back seam of the waistband added so much bulk that I was unable to top stitch the belt loop on top of the mid-back waistband seam. So I had to do a no seam in the back. Maybe I should have tried the hammer method. I didn't do that. Instead, I made a new waistband.
Yeah, no, not sure what would have been most successful. But now it's done, and your jeans are beautiful. So
Yeah, thank you. Have we covered pretty much everything, or was it something that we forgotten maybe in this
I think that's what's going on in our lives at the moment.
Yeah, lots of stuff, clearly. Yeah, we had a lot to talk about, so that's always nice. And we also want to say a big thank you for anyone who's listening us, and of course you want to watch us as well. You can hop over to YouTube, Stitching Tales Pod, and you can see us there every week. If you do that, you will actually get the podcast one day before, because we are publishing that video on Monday evening, not at Tuesday morning Central European time. So that could be nice if you want to get the first look on our next episode. And of course, we also have our Instagram account, Stitching Tales Pod, where we always also post photos for every episode. It's like a visual companion to this podcast as well. So we're definitely gonna post some pictures of this episode as well. We'll see what we can figure out. Of course, Malena's beautiful top. I'm gonna post some more jeans photos and of the fabric that I'm gonna turn into pants, and probably some other nice things as well. So definitely recommend that as well. Stitching Tales Pod on Instagram. Anyways, thank you so much for listening. I am Johanna Lundström.
And I am Malena Hjerpe. Bye bye.
Bye bye. Perfekt, 1 timme exakt.
Ja, men härligt.
Nice, gött, bra.
Sweet.